We used to be hunters and gatherers, nomadic humans adapting to the world. We were wolves once, lions even. Now what are we? Chickens? Sheep? Cows? Or three? Hello everybody, and welcome back to whatever it is that we're doing here. Another vlog from inside the tent. Damn this English weather. Anyway. Let's assume the USA is the huntingest country in the Western world, which I think is a fair assumption. Only around 6% of Americans hunt. And of those, how many do you think have spent the necessary years learning an animal's or a species' behaviour? Most modern hunters don't actively track because they don't need to. They find an animal trail, bait and wait because it's easier. I'm not criticising, that's what I would do, you know, because I'm lazy, like you. Water is more important than food, this is known. But do you know how to source water that is less likely to be riddled with bacteria, harmful bacteria? I don't. I mean, there's common sense stuff, like always taking from a flowing source upriver of any industry, for example. Or always use a water filter. But I've filtered water and it still tastes funky. I once got filtered water from a large, more of a puddle than a pond, that was full of cigarette butts, but I was desperate and it was the only source available to me. And I filtered the crap out of it and it still tastes like cigarettes. Gah. Do you know how to make a hook? How about a line or a net or a basket? Yeah, me neither. I don't eat much fish, so I don't really pay attention to these skills, but I've picked up one or two accidentally. In order to find and kill animals effectively for food, we have to become expert in animal psychology. We learned, developed and handed down knowledge over thousands of generations, because the ability to predict an animal's behaviour is vital in harvesting meat from the environment. And meat was our most important food source because of its nutritional density. Perhaps less so nowadays because our servile, subordinate lifestyles are less demanding. The vast majority of paleoanthropologists ascribe the development of our massive human brains to the skills used to harvest meat from the environment. The massive calorific and nutritional demands of these organic supercomputers are thought to be seeded in these hunting and fishing skills. Wait, what's that noise? Ah, it's nothing to worry about. It's just a vegan sharpening his pitchfork. Similar to the knowledge of animals passing from generation to generation over millions of years, so the knowledge of plants and how to harvest them in any given ecosystem. Just to give you an idea, there are around 20,000 edible plants on the planet, and we only farm about 300 of them. We know the more varied the diet, the healthier it is, which leads us to in a world without safety rails, people died earlier because they had extremely physical lives. But Paleolithic people weren't dropping dead at 30 years old like a lot of people think. Disease was actually less of a factor than most people imagine. A large proportion of communicable diseases actually originated in domesticated animals and spread because of overcrowded humans in towns and cities. Before farming forced us into this close proximity, such diseases were far less prevalent. In addition, the medical knowledge gathered from tens of thousands of generations of hunter-gatherers experimenting meant treatment was probably far more sophisticated than we can imagine. Indeed, the chief indicator of a society's medical proficiency is the average lifespan. And many hunter-gatherers lived on into their 60s and 70s if they managed to survive infancy. And that's key. Child death is what skews the average downward. Infant and elderly care are where modern medicine truly trumps our natural state. We can tell by collections of artifacts that nomadic hunter-gatherers roamed for hundreds of miles. And if they tended to keep a regular cycle of migration, which would be the lazy way to do it, it'd be the way we would do it, that's hundreds of miles every year. We have incredible spatial awareness and mental map-making abilities, but for covering areas this vast, we augment with physical references. Indigenous Australians would use pictographic maps and artwork and storytelling to navigate the often featureless terrain of the outback. Native Americans would bend trees over to point in a certain direction and erect stone cairns and delineate the waymarks of a journey with knots on a length of cordage or knocks in a piece of wood. The real survival skill is our ability to offload that mental navigation workload onto materials that essentially store the data for us. The stick is a paleolithic smartphone. Technology, eh? I told you we were lazy.